The shuttle came down hard through the storm clouds of Vara 7. Lightning cracked across the sky like breaking glass. Inside, 7 beings from different worlds grabbed whatever they could hold. Metal screamed. Warning lights flashed red. Then everything went dark. Kethrix woke to silence and pain. His 4 arms were tangled in safety straps. Around him, the other members of the survey team groaned and moved slowly. The shuttle had torn itself apart against the rocks of the Thornback Wilds. They were alive, but barely. He counted heads. Tuvun, the massive herbivore engineer, was pulling debris off himself with shaking hands. 3 Valerans like Kethrix were checking their injuries. The 2 Dreth warriors were already standing, scanning the tree line with weapons drawn. But someone was missing. The human doctor Elena Vasquez. Kethrix had worked with humans before. They were strange creatures. Soft bodies, no natural weapons, yet somehow they had spread across the galaxy like a quiet fire. This one was a xenobiologist. She studied alien life forms. She asked too many questions and wrote everything down in little notebooks. Now she was gone. They found her at dawn, half a kilometer from the crash site. What they saw made Kethrix stop breathing. Elena was crouched in the mud beside a fallen tree. Her uniform was torn. Blood ran down her face from a cut above her eye. But she was not looking at her wounds. She was looking at the creature pinned beneath the wreckage, thought it was a Varath stalker. A juvenile, but still large enough to kill any of them with a single swipe of its clawed feet. 6 legs, armored scales the color of dried blood. 4 amber eyes that caught the morning light like burning coins. The Concordance had classified these creatures as Category 9 threats, the highest level. The protocol was simple. Avoid them, run from them, or kill them. There was no 4th option. The creature's back legs were crushed under a section of the shuttle hull. It was breathing fast and shallow. Dark blood pooled beneath it. It should have been dead already, or dying. Instead, it was very much alive, and Elena Vasquez had her bare hands pressed against its heaving side. Kethrix raised his sidearm. His training took over. Category to 9 threat. Injured predators were the most dangerous kind. 1 clean shot to the skull would end this. Elena did not look at him. She spoke without turning her head. Lower your weapon. Her voice was calm. Too calm. The voice of someone who had already made a decision and would not change it. Dr. Vasquez, Kethrix said, keeping his weapon raised. Step away from the animal. It is a Category 9. Even injured, it can kill you in seconds. I know what it is. Then you know I must terminate it. Now she did look at him. Her eyes were tired and hard. The creature beneath her hands made a sound, low and rough, like stones grinding together. A warning sound. But it did not strike. It watched them all with those 4 burning eyes, chest rising and falling, and it did not move. It's a juvenile, Elena said. Barely 2 years old, if the growth patterns match the survey data. It was hunting alone. Juveniles don't hunt alone unless something is wrong. Unless they've been separated from their pack. This does not change the protocol. The protocol is wrong. Tuvun had caught up to them now. The big Morokai's eyes went wide when he saw the stalker. His species had evolved as prey animals on their homeworld. Every instinct in his body was screaming at him to run. Kethrix could see his legs trembling. Kill it, Tuvun whispered. Please, kill it now. Elena shook her head. She turned back to the creature. Slowly, carefully, she moved her hands along its flank, feeling the bones beneath the scales. The stalker's eyes tracked her movements. Its claws flexed in the dirt. But it did not attack. 2 broken legs, Elena said, mostly to herself. Possible internal bleeding. It needs surgery it won't get. It needs medication I don't have. She paused. It needs someone to stay with it. The Dreth warrior, Karth, stepped forward. His scaled face showed nothing, but his voice was sharp. "You are suggesting we waste resources on a dying predator? One that would eat us if it could stand?" "I'm not suggesting anything for you," Elena said. "I'm telling you what I'm going to do. You can go back to the secondary camp. Call for rescue. Do whatever the protocol says." She looked at the creature again. Its breathing had slowed slightly. One of its eyes had closed. "I'm staying here." Kethrix did not understand. He had studied humans. He knew their history, their wars, their strange customs. But this made no sense. This creature was a predator, an enemy. It would kill her the moment it had the strength. Why would she throw her life away for an animal that could not even thank her? He asked her. The question came out harsher than he intended. "What can you possibly do for it? It is dying. You cannot save it. And if you try, it will kill you. What is the point?" Elena was quiet for a long moment. The wind blew through the broken trees. Somewhere in the distance, something screamed, a hunting cry echoing across the wilderness. When she answered, her voice was soft. "The point is that it's scared. It's alone. It's in pain." She wiped the blood from her face with the back of her hand. "I've been all three. Someone helped me once." Kethrix stared at her. He did not know what to say. The stalker made another sound. Not a warning this time. Something else. Something almost like a question. Elena leaned closer to it, and Kethrix saw something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. The creature. This Category 9 apex predator, this thing that existed only to hunt and kill, turned its massive head and pressed its snout against Elena's palm. Just for a moment. Just a touch. Then it closed its eyes. Elena looked up at the team. Her face was exhausted but certain. "Go," she said. "Set up camp. Call for rescue. I'll catch up when I can." Tuvan's voice shook. "What will you do? What can you do for a dying predator?" Elena turned back to the creature. She placed her hand on its side again, feeling the slow rhythm of its heart. "Keep it alive," she said. "For as long as I can." They left her there, alone with the monster, as the sun rose over the broken wilderness of Varith 7. Kethrix looked back once. He saw Elena pulling supplies from her pack, tearing strips from her own jacket, already working. He did not understand. But something in him, something old and quiet, whispered that he was watching something important. Something that would change everything. He just did not know how yet. 3 days passed. The rescue signal had been sent, but the storms on Varith 7 made travel dangerous. Help was coming, but slowly. The team waited in their secondary camp, a collection of emergency shelters 1 kilometer from the crash site. And every day, Kethrix walked back to check on the human. He told himself it was duty. He was the senior diplomatic observer. If Elena died, he would need to file a report. He would need to explain to Anthropic, to her government, how one of their people had been killed by a Category 9 predator, while acting against all common sense. But that was not the real reason. The real reason was that he needed to understand. On the first day, he found Elena building a splint. She had torn apart pieces of the shuttle wreckage, bent them into shape, and was strapping them to the creature's broken legs with strips of thermal blanket. The stalker was awake. It watched her work with those 4 amber eyes. Its claws were close enough to tear her face off. It did not move. On the second day, he found her cleaning its wounds. She had used most of her water ration, pouring it over the creature's torn scales, washing away the dried blood and dirt. She talked to her while she worked. Soft words. Meaningless words. The stalker could not understand human language, but it seemed to understand something. When she spoke, its breathing slowed. its eyes half closed. On the third day, he found her sitting beside it, feeding it strips of dried meat from her emergency supplies. She was going hungry to feed a predator. Cathrix stood at the edge of the clearing and watched. The stalker lifted its head when it saw him. A low rumble built in its chest. Not quite a growl. A warning. Elena placed her hand on its neck. "Easy," she said. "He's not a threat. He's just confused." The rumble stopped. The creature settled back down, its massive head resting on its front legs. Elena scratched behind the armored plates near its skull. The stalker made a new sound, something Cathrix had never heard before. Almost like a purr. He walked closer, slowly, keeping his hands visible. "It should have killed you by now," he said. "Probably." "Why hasn't it?" Elena shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe it's too weak. Maybe it knows I'm trying to help. Maybe it's just waiting for the right moment." She smiled, tired and thin. "I prefer to think it's the second one." Cathrix sat down on a fallen log, keeping a safe distance. The stalker's eyes tracked him for a moment, then closed again. "The others think you have gone mad," he said. "Tuvan believes the crash damaged your brain. The Dreth think you are establishing dominance, preparing to kill it yourself. My own people think humans simply lack proper threat recognition. What do you think?" Cathrix considered the question. He looked at the creature, this thing of claws and scales and teeth, resting peacefully beside a being it could kill in a heartbeat. "I think I do not understand your species at all." Elena laughed. It was a rough sound, tired and real. "That's fair." She paused, running her fingers along the stalker's flank. "Can I ask you something?" "Yes. On your homeworld, your people, the Velorans, you're an insectoid species. You live in hive structures, right? Thousands of individuals working together. That is correct. Did you ever have predators? Things that hunted you?" Cathrix's antennae twitched. An uncomfortable question. "Yes, many. The tunneling worms. The sky hunters. Others. What did you do about them?" "We avoided them when we could. We killed them when we had to. Eventually, as our technology grew, we drove most of them to extinction. They were threats. We eliminated threats." Elena nodded slowly. "That makes sense. That's what most species do." She looked down at the stalker. "Humans did something different." "What do you mean?" "We had predators too. Wolves, big cats, bears. Creatures that hunted us, killed us, ate our children." Her voice was calm, like she was discussing the weather. "We should have wiped them out. We had the ability. We had the reason." She smiled. "Instead, we made them family." Cathrix stared at her. He did not understand the words. "We took wolves, the creatures that hunted us in the dark, and we fed them. We let them sleep beside our fires. We raised their pups with our children. And over thousands of years, they became something new. Dogs, we called them. Our partners. Our protectors. Our friends." The stalker shifted beside her, pressing closer to her warmth. Elena's hand never stopped moving along its scales. "We did it with cats, too. And horses. Giant creatures that could crush us with a single kick. We did it with birds of prey, with elephants, with 100 other species that should have been our enemies." She looked at Cathrix. "We didn't tame them, not really. We made a deal with them. We offered them food, shelter, safety. They offered us loyalty, protection, companionship. Both sides gained something. That is..." Cathrix searched for the word. "Insane, maybe, but it worked." Elena scratched the stalker behind its crest. It made that purring sound again. "We're pack animals, Cathrix. We evolved in groups. We survived because we could cooperate, not just with each other, but with other species. We look at a predator, and we don't just see a threat. We see a potential ally." Cathrix was quiet for a long time. He thought about his own people, their clean hives, their ordered society. They had never allied with predators. The idea had never even occurred to them. Predators were dangers to be managed, not partners to be made. But humans, he accessed the diplomatic database through his neural link, searching for information he had never thought to look for. What he found disturbed him deeply. Humans had domesticated dozens of species. Predators, prey, everything in between. They kept carnivores in their homes. They let their children play with creatures that could kill them. They mourned when these animals died, built monuments to them, wrote stories about them. It was not madness. It was strategy. A strategy so strange, so alien, that no other species had ever thought to try it. He looked at Elena, at this small, soft human sitting beside a Category 9 predator, and he felt something he had not expected. Fear. Not of the creature. Fear of what humans might become. If given enough time, the stalker opened its eyes. It looked at Elena, then at Cathrix. Slowly, painfully, it stood. The splints held. The creature took one step, then another. It was weak, but it was alive. It could have walked away. The wilderness called. Its pack was out there somewhere. Instead, it limped back to Elena's side, lowered itself to the ground, and pressed its massive body against her. It closed its eyes. Elena smiled. "Good girl," she whispered. "Good girl." Cathrix watched in silence. He understood now. This was not compassion. Not in the way his people defined it. This was something older. Something more dangerous. This was how humans conquered worlds. Not with weapons. Not with armies. With food and patience, and the terrifying abilities that turn enemies into friends. On the sixth day, the pack came. Cathrix was walking back from his morning check on Elena when he heard Tuvan scream. It was a sound of pure terror, the kind of sound prey animals make when death is close. He ran toward the camp, his forearms reaching for his weapons. What he found stopped him cold. 7 Vareth stalkers stood at the edge of the tree line. Adults, full grown. Each one was twice the size of the juvenile Elena had been caring for. Their scales were darker, marked with scars from countless hunts. Their eyes glowed like furnace fires in the morning mist. The largest one stood at the front. A female, Cathrix guessed, based on the survey data. The matriarch of the pack. She was massive, nearly 3 meters long, with a crest of bony spines running down her back. Old wounds crossed her face. She had survived things that would have killed lesser creatures. She was looking directly at the camp. Tuvan had fallen backward and was trying to crawl away, his massive body shaking. The Dreth warriors had their weapons raised, but even they looked uncertain. 7 Category 9 predators. Even with their training, the odds were not good. "Nobody move," Cathrix said quietly. "Nobody fire." "They'll kill us all," one of the Velerans whispered. "Not if we stay calm." Sudden movements trigger hunting instincts. We stay still. We stay quiet. We might survive long enough for them to lose interest. But the stalkers did not leave. They did not charge. They simply stood there, watching, waiting. The matriarch's nostrils flared. She was scenting the air. She was looking for something. Cathrix understood all at once. "The juvenile," he breathed. "They're looking for the juvenile." The pack had tracked its missing member across kilometers of wilderness. They had followed the scent through storms and rough terrain. And now they had found the place where that scent was strongest. They had found Elena. Cathrix turned toward the crash site. He had to warn her. He had to. Elena was already walking toward them. She came out of the trees slowly, calmly, like she was taking a morning stroll. Her clothes were dirty and torn. She looked like she had not slept in days. But her steps were steady. Her face was set. Behind her, limping on its splinted legs, came the juvenile stalker. "Dr. Vasquez," Kethrix called out. "Stop. Do not approach them." She ignored him. The matriarch's head turned toward her. A low sound built in the great creature's chest, a rumble like distant thunder. The other pack members shifted, their claws digging into the earth. They were ready to charge. Elena kept walking. She stopped 3 meters from the matriarch. The juvenile limped past her, moving toward its mother. It made a series of sounds, clicks, and rumbles that seemed to carry meaning. A language, perhaps. A way of communicating that no outsider had ever documented. The matriarch listened. Her burning eyes moved from the juvenile to Elena and back again. Kethrix held his breath. His finger was on the trigger of his sidearm, but he knew it would not matter. If the pack attacked, they would all die. The question was whether Elena would die first. The matriarch moved forward. Kethrix nearly fired. Only years of training kept his hand still. The great predator walked toward Elena, each step slow and deliberate. She was close enough to kill the human with a single snap of her jaws. Elena did not back away. She did not run. She stood there, small and fragile, looking up at a creature that could end her life in a heartbeat. The matriarch lowered her head. She scented Elena. Her nostrils moved across the human's face, her chest, her hands. Those hands that had touched her child. Those hands that had fed it and healed it and kept it alive. Then the matriarch did something impossible. She sat down. One by one, the other pack members followed. They settled into the grass, their massive bodies relaxing, their eyes still watchful but no longer hunting. The juvenile limped over to its mother and pressed against her side. The matriarch licked its wounds, her rough tongue moving over the splints Elena had built. Elena let out a breath. Her shoulders dropped. She had been terrified. Kethrix realized. She had just hidden it well. She turned and walked back to the team. Tuvin was still shaking. "What? What just happened?" "I returned her child," Elena said simply. "She's deciding what that means." The Dreth warrior, Kareth, lowered his weapon slowly. His voice was rough. "The pack. They're not leaving." He was right. The stalkers had not returned to the wilderness. Instead, they were spreading out, forming a loose circle around the camp. But they were not facing inward, toward the team. They were facing outward, toward the wilderness. Toward whatever else might be hunting in the Thornback wilds. Kethrix understood, and the understanding sent ice through his veins. "They're guarding us," he whispered. Elena nodded. She looked tired beyond words, but there was something in her eyes. Something like satisfaction. The matriarch made a choice. I helped her child. That makes me connected to the pack somehow. Not a member, not exactly, but not prey either. She watched the stalkers patrolling the perimeter. "We're under their protection now. For how long?" Tonvan asked. "I don't know. Until she decides otherwise. Until something changes." Elena sat down heavily on a supply crate. "For now, we're safer than we've been since the crash." Kethrix watched the matriarch. The great creature was lying near the edge of the clearing, her juvenile pressed against her side. She was watching Elena, not with hunger, not with threat, with something else. Something that looked almost like respect. That night, Kethrix did not sleep. He sat at the edge of camp, watching the stalkers move through the darkness. Their eyes glowed like scattered embers. Occasionally, one of them would make a sound, a call or response to the others. They were communicating, coordinating. Hunting. Just before dawn, he heard something crash through the undergrowth 100 meters away. A scream, cut short. The stalkers had killed something. Something that had been coming toward the camp. Something that would have found the team. If the pack had not been there, Elena appeared beside him, 2 cups of water in her hands. She offered him one. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "No." They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the sounds of the pack moving through the night. "I do not understand you," Ketherick said finally. "Your species, your ways. A week ago, that creature was a threat, a danger, something to be killed or avoided. Now it protects us. How did you know?" Elena sipped her water. "I didn't know. Not for certain. But I knew what she was feeling. Fear for her child. The need to protect her family. Those are things I understand." She looked at him, her strange human eyes catching the starlight. "We're not so different, Kethericks. Humans and stalkers. Both hunters. Both pack animals. Both willing to die for our families." She smiled, small and tired. I took a chance. I bet that she would recognize that. And she did. Kethericks looked out at the darkness, at the glowing eyes that watched and waited. "Your people," he said slowly, "are terrifying." Elena laughed. "You have no idea." The night before rescue was the quietest night on Vera 7. The storms had finally passed. The stars burned clear and cold above the Thornback Wilds. In 12 hours, a concordant shuttle would arrive to take them home. Kethericks could not sleep. He walked to the edge of camp, where the firelight met the darkness. Elena was there, as he had somehow known she would be. She sat on a flat rock, her back against a fallen tree. The juvenile stalker lay beside her, its massive head resting in her lap. Its eyes were closed. Its breathing was slow and peaceful. 1 week ago, this creature would have killed her without hesitation. Now it slept at her feet like a child. Ketherick sat down nearby, careful to move slowly. The juvenile opened one eye, looked at him, then closed it again. It had learned to recognize him. It no longer saw him as a threat. "Can I ask you something?" Ketherick said. Elena nodded without looking up. Her fingers moved through the creature's scales, tracing patterns along its armored crest. "Your people, the concordant species. You all think we're strange. I've seen the looks, the confusion, the fear sometimes." She smiled faintly. "What exactly confuses you the most?" Kethericks thought about the question. There were so many things about humans that made no sense to him. Their bodies were soft and weak. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no venom. They lived short lives and spent much of that time doing things that seemed pointless. Art, music, stories about things that never happened. And yet they had spread across the galaxy. They had survived wars that should have destroyed them. They had built empires and then torn them down and built new ones. They were everywhere, doing everything, and no one quite understood how. "You are contradictions," he said finally. "Every part of you contradicts some other part. You are violent, but also gentle. Logical, but also irrational. You hunt, but you also protect. You fear, but you do not run." He gestured at the stalker in her lap. "You should be terrified of that creature. Every instinct should tell you to kill it or flee from it. Instead, you fed it and healed it, and now you love it. This makes no sense to me." Elena was quiet for a moment. The stalker made a soft sound in its sleep, a rumble of contentment. "We're not contradictions," she said slowly. "We're just complicated. All of those things exist in us at once. We choose which ones to act on. But how? How do you choose?" Elena looked up at the stars. Her face was tired but calm. "We're pack animals, Kethericks. That's the key to understanding us. We evolved in small groups, hunting together, surviving together. Our brains developed to read other creatures, to understand their feelings, their intentions, their fears. Empathy, we call it. the ability to feel what someone else is feeling. Empathy is not unique to humans. No, but we might have more of it than most species. And we apply it differently. She looked down at the stalker. When I found her, she was in pain. She was scared. She was alone. And some part of my brain, some ancient piece of programming, said, I know what that feels like. I can help. But she is a predator. She would have killed you. Maybe. Probably. Even. But I didn't see a predator. I saw a creature in pain. Elena shrugged. That's how we conquered Earth, you know. Not with weapons. With empathy. With the ability to look at something dangerous and think, I wonder if we could be friends. Cathrix remembered his research. The wolves that became dogs. The wild horses that carried humans across continents. The birds of prey that hunted alongside them. 1,000 species that should have been enemies, transformed into partners. You see yourself in them, he said slowly. In predators. In dangerous things. Yes. Elena's voice was soft. We see ourselves. Loyal. Cooperative. Dangerous when threatened. Capable of love and violence in equal measure. She scratched the stalker behind its ear. We didn't tame wolves, Cathrix. We recognized them. We saw creatures that lived in packs, that hunted together, that protected their families at any cost. And we thought, they're like us. We could work together. And now you're doing it again. Here, with these creatures. Maybe. Elena smiled. It's too early to tell. But she trusts me now. She chose to stay with me when she could have left. That means something. The matriarch appeared at the edge of the firelight. She moved silently for such a large creature, her massive body flowing through the darkness like water. She approached Elena slowly, her 4 eyes reflecting the flames. Cathrix tensed, reaching for his weapon. Don't, Elena said quietly. The matriarch stopped beside them. She looked down at her sleeping juvenile, then at Elena. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then the matriarch lowered her head. She pushed her snout against Elena's shoulder. Not hard, gentle, a gesture that Cathrix, as translator, flagged as significant. Pack-bonding behavior, acceptance. Elena raised her hand and placed it on the matriarch's scarred face. The great predator closed her eyes. Hello, Elena whispered. It's nice to meet you too. They stayed like that for a moment, human and apex predator, connected by something older than words. Then the matriarch turned and disappeared back into the darkness, returning to her patrol. Cathrix realized his hearts were pounding. All 4 of them? How? He breathed. How did you know she would do that? How did you know she wouldn't kill you? I didn't know. Elena's voice was steady, but I knew what I felt from her. Gratitude, respect, maybe even affection in her own way. She's a mother, Cathrix. I saved her child. That means something to her, just like it would mean something to a human mother. You risked your life on a guess. I risked my life on trust. Elena looked at him. That's what it comes down to in the end. Predators are dangerous. They can kill us. They probably will sometimes. But if we never take the risk, we never make the connection. We never gain the ally. Cathrix thought about this. His people had never trusted predators. They had feared them, killed them, driven them to extinction. It had seemed like the logical choice. The safe choice. But humans had chosen differently. They had chosen trust. And now they had allies in every corner of the galaxy. Creatures that would die for them. Creatures that would kill for them, including, perhaps, the apex predators of Vara 7. I'm going to file a report, Cathrix said slowly. When we return to the station, a report about what I've seen here. What will you say? Cathrix looked at the sleeping stalker. At the darkness where the matriarch had vanished. At the strange, soft, impossible human who had made friends with monsters. I will say that we have misunderstood your species. That you do not lack fear of predators. You simply refuse to let fear control you. You see something in dangerous creatures that the rest of us do not. Potential allies. Potential friends. He paused. And historically, you have been terrifyingly correct. Elena smiled. It was the first real smile he had seen from her in days. Thank you, Kethrix. I am not complimenting you. I am warning the Concordance. She laughed. The stalker in her lap stirred at the sound, then settled back into sleep. Same thing, really, Elena said. Same thing. They sat together in silence after that, watching the stars wheel overhead, waiting for the dawn that would bring rescue. Kethrix did not sleep. But for the first time since the crash, he felt something like peace, and something like fear. Not of the stalkers, of what humans might do next. 3 months later, Elena Vasquez stood before the Concordance Review Board. The chamber was vast and cold, a half-circle of elevated seats filled with representatives from a dozen species. Velerans with their gleaming carapaces, Marakai towering above the others, their gentle eyes watching. Dreth warriors in ceremonial armor, and others, species Elena had never met, all gathered to judge her actions on Varith 7. The charges were serious. Reckless endangerment. Violation of predator contact protocols. Conduct unbecoming a Concordance contractor. If found guilty, she would lose her position, her research rights, and possibly her freedom. She was not worried. The council chairman, an elderly Veleran named Thrixal, read the charges in a dry, formal voice. He listed her violations one by one. He described the risk she had taken. He emphasized the danger she had placed herself and her team in. When he finished, he asked if she had anything to say in her defense. Elena smiled. I'd like to call a character witness, she said. The chamber doors opened. Vex walked in. The juvenile stalker was fully healed now. Sleek and powerful, her scales gleaming like polished copper. She moved with fluid grace, each step silent despite her massive size. Her 4 amber eyes scanned the chamber, taking in the assembled representatives. The reaction was immediate. Several council members scrambled backward in their seats. A Marakai made a sound of pure terror. Security officers drew their weapons, shouting warnings. Vex ignored them all. She walked directly to Elena's side, lowered herself to the floor, and began grooming her claws. The chamber fell into shocked silence. This is Vex, Elena said calmly. She's my friend. The Dreth representative was the first to recover. He was a massive warrior named Drathok, covered in battle scars, his voice like grinding stone. You bring a Category 9 predator into this chamber? Have you lost your mind? No, I've gained a companion. You cannot control that creature. Elena looked at him steadily. I don't control her. She's not a weapon. She's not a tool. She's a thinking being who made a choice. She rested her hand on Vex's neck. She chose to stay with me. She chose to follow me here. She chooses every day whether to trust me. Vex lifted her head at her name. Her 4 eyes fixed on the Dreth. A low rumble built in her chest. Deep and threatening. DRATH, single quotes. Okay, went very still. Elena scratched behind Vex's crest. The rumble stopped immediately. Vex closed her eyes and leaned into the touch. Since the rescue, Elena continued, the Stalker Pack has protected 3 additional survey teams, operating in the Thornback Wilds. They've killed 6 predatory creatures that were approaching human camps. They've begun responding to human communication, simple signals and sounds. A relationship is forming. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each representative. I didn't tame them. I didn't conquer them. I made a connection. I showed them that humans could be trusted. And they responded. She paused. This isn't new. This is what humans have always done. We find dangerous creatures, and we make them our friends. The council chairman found his voice. This is highly irregular. The protocols exist for a good reason. Category 9 creatures are... The protocols are wrong. The words hung in the air. No one spoke. The protocols assume that predators are enemies, Elena said. That they can only be avoided or destroyed. But that's not true. Predators can be allies, partners, friends. Humans have known this for thousands of years. We just forgot to share that knowledge. Cathrix stepped forward from the witness area. He had been called to testify about the incident, and now he took his place at the speaker's podium. I watched her, he said quietly. For days, I watched her care for that creature. I did not understand. I thought she was mad. I thought she was foolish. I thought she would die. He looked at Vex, at the massive predator resting peacefully at Elena's feet. I was wrong. He turned to face the council. Humans do not simply coexist with predators. They convert them. They take creatures that should be enemies and transform them into partners. They did it with wolves on their homeworld. They did it with horses and hawks and 100 other species. And now they're doing it here. His voice grew stronger. We called what Elena did compassion. We were wrong. It was recruitment. She looked at a dangerous creature and saw a potential ally. She took a risk that none of us would have taken. And now, because of that risk, we have friends in the Thornback Wilds instead of enemies. He paused, letting his words sink in. My recommendation to this council: do not punish Dr. Vasquez. Learn from her. Study what she has done. And consider what humans might teach us about the creatures we have spent millennia fearing. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Thrixel, the council chairman, leaned forward. Dr. Vasquez, if we were to explore this approach further, this human method of predator integration, what would you need? Elena smiled. A team, resources, permission to operate in the Thornback Wilds without interference. She looked down at Vex. And maybe a few more creatures who were willing to take a chance on friendship. The vote took less than an hour. The charges were dropped. Elena was reassigned to lead a new initiative, Human Fauna Integration Studies. She would have full access to the Thornback Wilds, a budget, a team of researchers, and one Varith stalker as her official consultant thought as Elena left the chamber. Vex padding beside her, a young Valoran cadet stopped her in the corridor. His antennae twitched nervously. Dr. Vasquez? May I ask you something? Of course. Back at the crash site, when you first found the stalker, when it was injured and afraid. He hesitated. How did you know it wouldn't kill you? Elena looked at him for a long moment. Then she knelt down, bringing herself eye level with Vex. The massive predator bumped her forehead gently against Elena's. I didn't know, Elena admitted. I couldn't know. She was hurt and scared and dangerous. All of my training told me to run or to fight. She stood, scratching Vex behind her armored crest. But I knew what she was feeling. Pain, fear, loneliness. And I knew what I would want someone to do for me if I felt those things. She shrugged. The rest was just trust. Just betting that she would recognize kindness when she saw it. And if you had been wrong? Elena smiled. Then I would have died doing something I believed in. But I wasn't wrong. Because most creatures, even the dangerous ones, know the difference between an enemy and a friend. You just have to give them the chance to see which one you are. She walked away, human and predator moving together in perfect harmony. Cathrix watched them go. Then he returned to his office and added a final line to his official report. Recommendation: do not engage humans as enemies. They will find something on your world that wants to kill you, something that scares you, something that you have always believed was a monster. They will sit beside that creature in the dark. They will feed it and heal it and speak to it softly. They will show it patience and kindness and trust. And when they are done, that creature will not be your enemy anymore. It will be their friend. And then, heaven help you, it will be your friend too. He saved the file and sent it to Concordance Command. Outside his window, somewhere in the distance, a Varith stalker called out into the night. And for the first time in his life, Kethrix did not feel afraid.